I feel like it's been kind of long overdue since I've sat down and just kind of let myself talk about things in the way that I've been. So I figured why not. It just feels long overdue because I just have things on my mind that I feel like, sometimes you have so much on your mind that you feel like you can't even understand all of it, is kind of how I've been feeling. Just in my energy too. It's been very intense lately, I feel. And it's probably not just me. I'm sure other people feel that way too, because it tends to be that way. It tends to be that way when I talk to people, and I'm like, yeah, I felt kind of weird lately. I felt kind of, whatever lately. And they're like, yeah, so have I. So it's kind of weird how that happens, but it feels long overdue because I feel I have not been using my voice in the way that I should, and sometimes I feel like I have to learn more, and in that sense, I don't mean study someone's work more. I mean, I have to kind of understand the lessons that I'm teaching myself subconsciously. What I mean is, like, whatever I'm learning currently in life, whatever I have just learned how to do. I guess one thing I wanted to talk about was it's been recently brought to my attention that sometimes, meaning I've noticed something with myself that I really do still, even now, someone, like me, I've been practicing mindfulness and a lot of different things, just being aware of my inner world and shaping my inner world, and I have changed things for sure. I've brought things about, many, many times. But something I learned recently was just how much I was still unconsciously, naturally, like, moving towards the worst case scenario in my head. And I think that ever since I started learning about the kind of work that I practice, and when I say that, I really just mean consciously creating your life. I really don't love the word manifesting. It's just not my favorite way of putting these things. I feel like, especially because I went into it a couple years ago now, and kind of just wanted things, and I think so many people go through this where you just eventually stop wanting things, which is how I feel now. Like, there's really nothing, and I don't mean I don't have any aspirations in life. I just mean I don't have all these, like, things I want, if that makes sense. Regardless, my point is that's what I'm talking about when I say, like, practicing this type of work, or really, I guess, living a certain kind of way. And I had said this in my previous video too, that I went very like, it's hard to explain, but I think I have since learned a sense of balance. And what I mean by that is I had kind of interpreted this sort of work in a way that wasn't helping me. And what I mean is, like, I was interpreting it so heavily, if that makes sense. Like, I was no longer and I'll bring up Edward Art because I always do at some point, typically because he's the person I've learned the most from. But I love that he says imagine lightly. Yeah, I think because I had definitely gone through a time where I would sit down 3 or 4 times a day and try to visualize things so needful for them to happen, because I didn't feel like there was any other way. And what I mean by lack of balance is I was afraid to do anything. It was just, I was very much paralyzing myself with the type of work, and that's kind of vulnerable for me to even say because, it just is. I feel like it was hard to struggle with it, and I think a lot of people do, and that's kind of what I'm just trying to say, is that it takes time to fully understand, I think, and that's just my opinion, think it took me a long time to understand everything. And I still don't think I understand everything. And I probably will never, I'm never going to understand everything in life. If you're anything like me, that probably frustrates you on some level. I just want to understand everything in this life. And I think that that's what's always made me, at least now, that is what is still keeping me with this kind of work, is it just interests me. And it really is that simple. I'm always interested in expanding the way I'm thinking about this reality in front of me. And that's what excites me about it. No longer like wanting things. And if you do, like, I'm absolutely not shaming you, and I completely understand. I think that for me at least, I've had a vision that is so deeply embedded in me at this point that I am connected to it kind of naturally every day. And I'm happy that way, But I guess circling back to what I was saying, this is probably going to come off so... This whole video, I feel like I'm just kind of randomly speaking. So I guess on that note, though, one thing I have realized recently is, I don't have to be perfect. Oops, keep hitting my thing at my desk. I think sometimes, I guess whatever, it's a new year and stuff. And I was kind of thinking, I really would like to sit down and speak more this year, because I feel like I leave so many things unsaid, in a sense that I know I could probably say things that someone else at least could be somewhat relieved by, or at least be somewhat, it's hard for me to explain what I'm trying to say. Just, to have another person at the table is my point. I know that I can be one more person at the table for somebody, one more person that they can that they know is kind of there if they need to listen to something. Because at least that's how I am. I've mentioned that I listen to Edward Art, and I have for quite some time now, but I always appreciate when people just speak on things. I think it's so healing to listen to other people talk on things that matter to them, things that are deep to them, things that they wouldn't talk to somebody that they know about, probably, because they'd feel maybe embarrassed or judged by them, or maybe I shouldn't talk about something so quotations deep. I don't know if that makes sense. People avoid things like that. People really do. They avoid those kinds of conversations, I think, which I get. But for someone, if you're anything like me, I crave those conversations more than I crave anything in this world, I think. And I don't think anything gives me as much peace and passion as just hearing other people talk about this kind of thing. And when I say this kind of thing, I just mean whatever is on your mind. And whatever's on your mind in the sense of, what do you think, what are you currently thinking about life? What are you currently learning about life right now? I think there's always something. And I know there's always something for me. And I know that sometimes it's painful for me as well. And if it is for you too, you're not alone. I do my best to make it painless for myself, because I think what makes it painful is I want to be perfect so badly. And I learned that recently about myself, was I desire to be perfect. I'm a very artistic person. I grew up being I grew up painting and drawing every day. It was my life, and everything was about it looking perfect and being perfect. And I would compare my work to someone's work who was a lot better, and I'd look at my work and look at their work and look at my work and look at their work, and my work's not perfect. I need to keep working on it. I need it to be perfect. If it's not, that's not good enough for me. The problem with growing up that way is I have now taken that into everything. And I've kind of realized that recently, which is important. I've realized that is such an important thing I've learned, is that the perfection isn't real. It's just not real. And it's definitely not real in our minds either. I think that for a long time, it's so funny. When I was trying to make things have a certain outcome, right? I was so focused on the outcome I did not want that honestly, a lot of the times, I would probably externalize that outcome I didn't want. And sometimes when I'd say that to myself, I'd feel a lot of fear about how much power I had. Like my own power, the power that I was holding over my own reality scared me horribly. I didn't want that kind of power. And I think sometimes I'd actually ignore the power, and for just a little while hide in ignorance again, because it's easier to just hide in that kind of ignorance and, be hypnotized again, go back, and I don't like that kind of term. I don't love the awake, asleep thing. I don't know. Be hypnotized again by life. Be brought back into illusion that I have nothing to do with what's going on around me. I'm just a bystander of a show that I didn't direct, and I'm definitely not an actor in. I'm just watching the show. I'm just an audience member, when in reality I am the show. For just a little while, to sneak back into the audience, sit down in the chair in the darkness and look at the stage and pretend I'm not the director, I'm speaking just so randomly right now. But sometimes I desire that, and then I have to remind myself that it's a blessing to be aware that I'm powerful. It's a blessing to know the power you have in your life. And yeah, what I mean is, I just realized lately I was so focused on negative outcomes all the time that I really would externalize them. And fear, I was so fearful of that outcome coming about that I'd fix, those were my thoughts and my feelings, really. And what's so funny is I've realized, that a lot of us, probably most of us, we all, probably do a lot of the same things in our mind. But I was realizing that even though I know this work, which is so funny to me, which I've heard Edward Art talk about how Neville would sometimes forget to use the law, and I thought that was, I don't know, I thought it was funny. And I also was like, okay, that's, if Neville Goddard, forgot to use the law or whatever, man, I can't beat myself up for doing certain things sometimes, I guess. But regardless, I think it's so funny that I know this work, but I would go into this way of thinking, and I don't mean that to shame myself or judge myself, because doing either of those things doesn't help, but I would really forget this work, and then I would think of what is the worst thing that could happen in this situation, and I'm gonna embody that energy to protect myself against it. And you have to understand that it doesn't work. It never has worked for me. That's what I've realized. And everything I talk about on these videos is going to be things from my experience of life and from nothing else. I have learned through practice, trial and error, testing things. When I embody the energy I don't want, I just get what I don't want. It doesn't protect me from what I don't want. It just gives me what I don't want. Because what I'm embodying is what creates, because there's nothing else creating anything but me in my life. So, but I know from experience, when I embody the energy I do want, I do get what I want. But the difference is I used to think I was embodying the energy I wanted, but I would actually be so horrified of the opposite outcome that I was only embodying that outcome so that I wouldn't get the other one out of fear. I was forcing myself. Okay, let's sit down, visualize. Okay, can you see it? Okay, can you feel it? Can you feel it a little bit more? Okay, let me do it again in 2 hours. Okay, let me do it again later. Okay, did I do it today? And then I wake up feeling like, it's not gonna work. What energy am I embodying? It's crazy, It's crazy how you realize that. It's like, wow, I'm really just doing everything backwards, and I don't even realize it. But what's good is that I realize it now, and I can share it with you and just say, it's not about being perfect. I think if you're anything like me, that's hard to hear when people say, when people would say perfection doesn't exist, I'd actually get mad. Part of me would get mad. I'd be like, yeah, it does. I can't. Yes, it does. You're just saying that. It definitely exists. But it's like it doesn't, and that's even a scientific law that there is no perfection in our universe. There was a Stephen Hawking quote that I wrote down. Him talking about. Actually, I have it. I'll have it and I'll read it. I have it and I will read it to you because I wrote it down. He said, which I'm going to trust what this guy has to say. One of the basic rules of the universe is that nothing is perfect. Without imperfection, neither you or I would exist. I wrote it down because I need to hear that a lot. Because I was and the reason I bring up perfection is I was so fixated on not creating a negative outcome and being perfect about not creating it, not think, oh my God, don't think about the opposite. Don't think about something bad happening. Don't think about something bad happening. It's like me telling you, don't think about a purple elephant. What are you going to think about? It's until I say I don't need to be perfect. And, I think of the opposite outcome. Oh, well, I don't care. It doesn't matter because I feel confident in the energy I'm embodying. I'm not afraid. And I know that at least this helps me, I think about this. Because a lot of times the things for me that I was really trying to express were opportunities going a certain way. I think, well, there's plenty. There's millions and millions of opportunities for me. There's millions and millions and millions and millions of opportunities. Look inside, close your eyes. How many opportunities can you see? Oh, thousands of millions. I can see thousands of millions. Well, then that's how many there are. You're judging off of appearances. You're judging what's in front of your face right now. Look inside. That's how many opportunities there are. So this tiny little opportunity that's come into your scope here isn't the center of the world. It's just not. There will be so many. So why place this thing above you? And it's easier said than done, for sure. It is. It takes time. It takes practice. Like anything else takes practice. So does this. And I wish that I had realized that it was okay for me to make mistakes. It was okay for me not to completely understand what I was doing. Like, it was okay for me to have to try it and fail. I think that honestly failing at this kind of work is one of the best things that can happen, because you realize what doesn't work for you. Firsthand, this kind of work is like something you have to try yourself to understand it. You really can't understand it from other people saying it, no matter how much you study it. And I can tell you that, I was for so long ago, long before I even really discovered Edward Art, whose work was, again, the best work I've ever seen on this stuff. The only person whose work I even somewhat consume from this. But, before I found him, I would study this kind of work like it was my life. Like I was getting a degree in it. Okay, I can't think those kinds of thoughts. Okay, it sounds crazy. I know it does. Probably. And again, that's not to be judgmental towards myself. I just know that it probably sounds like unbelievable, but it's true. I really did that. And I think I was desperate to understand life I was very desperate to understand why things happen the way they do, what's going on around me, what is the origin of life, all these different things, And obviously my curiosity led me somewhere good, which sometimes curiosity sometimes leads you somewhere good, sometimes it might not, but I guess in this case it did. But, my point is, I didn't learn this from someone else telling me what, yes, I learned it from someone who knows how to speak on these things, I guess. But at the end of the day, the things I learned were from myself applying it, testing it to my own life, And I think there's no person who's ever practiced this work who doesn't make a mistake or do it wrong, for certain things. We all have, we all have things that might be harder for us. And that's okay. And you don't need to be perfect. It sounds so simple, like, oh, you don't have to be perfect. But to me, I really didn't understand that. I really thought I did have to be perfect. I really thought that if I couldn't do something, that was the end of the world. I couldn't make that express itself. I got what I didn't want. It's the end of the world. I failed. I can't do this. I'm not powerful. I should never try this again. That's what I used to think a long time ago. And now, when I guess it's kind of been a while since that's happened, but what I realized is that what energy am I actually embodying? Am I actually so scared that I'm tricking myself into a backwards mentality that believing I don't have it and it's going to go so wrong for me is just going to keep me safe? You have to understand who's talking there. And that's a darkness talking, that really is. It's not anything good talking. That voice is easier to trust when you're in the dark and you can't see. But I promise you, if you listen to yourself and you just trust yourself and say, I can do this, no matter what, I can do this. And, I always remind myself I don't have to be perfect. And I can stumble, I can make as many mistakes as I want. And I'm still not going to fail. It's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for you either. I know it's not. If you're watching this, I just know it's not going to happen. You're not going to fail. But be okay. Allow yourself to make a mistake. That's just, if I could go back and give myself some advice a year ago, I would have said, or 2 years ago, whenever, I would have said, please let yourself make mistakes. Just allow it. Allow yourself to make mistakes. You're going to learn more from them than people say that. You're going to learn more from your mistakes. It's true. I really believe that. That was pretty much what I wanted to say. I hope that this made some kind of sense, but I'm not perfect. And neither is my, what do you want to call this? Prose speech? I don't know. Okay, it's definitely not speech. It's that would be the most unorganized speech ever. But I hope that what I said can provide someone with something of value. That's what I'll say. Okay, bye for now.